Thanks for joining us this week on the show. I am thrilled to share with you a conversation I've had with Carol Look. She is an EFT tapping specialist and psychotherapist who helps her clients move through blocks and resistance, find more success by integrating EFT tapping in her practice. We have a great conversation on the potential of tapping if you are not familiar with it, or if you are familiar, if you used it in the past, it's a great reminder. So join us for some inspiration and another wonderful tool to add to your self-care toolkit. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified.
Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with us this week for a conversation I'm excited to share with you about one of my favorite therapeutic modalities that I hope you're familiar with. And if not by now, today is the perfect day. I am joined today by Carol Look, EFT master and creator of the Yes Code. Carol is a psychotherapist, founding EFT master, best-selling author, international speaker, creator of her signature coaching method, the Yes Code, and author of a book by the same name. She combines her traditional training as a psychotherapist with clinical hypnosis and advanced applications of EFT for unprecedented results with her clients. Carol, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Susie. What a pleasure to be with you.
You know, I became familiar with EFT, I would say 6, maybe even 8 years ago, as I started my journey into the space of holistic health and modalities, experienced it for myself, and I was absolutely blown away by the results. And the more stories that I heard, the more powerful I recognized this is. And it's such a wonderful technique that people can learn and apply themselves and be empowered to address their emotional, even physical issues. So I'm excited to dig into this topic, as I'm sure you can already tell. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to, maybe if you want to go as far back as become aware of this, but how did you integrate this into your practice, and how do you find these results support your clients?
Well, I was, as you said in the intro, I'm a traditional psychotherapist, and then I became a hypnotist. And somebody in one of my hypnosis classes said, "You think that's fun? Wait till you try this new, strange tapping technique." And I tried it and took my first training, and everything changed. So I changed my life. I changed my clients' lives. I taught it to people. I teach it around the world. And I just find it the easiest, fastest, and most long-lasting tool that I found out there. We really go deep with it. You know, people will say, well, what about all the other tools? Other tools are great. This is the one that's the best tool in my hands with my clients. So I would say to people, let me give you this stress relief tool. I'll do 5 minutes, see how you like it. And if you don't like it, I'll give you the 5 minutes back at the end of a session. And they were, oh, sure, of course, no problem. And of course, they started having reactions, good reactions, calming down their stress, stopping their cravings. So it worked. It worked so quickly. And then, of course, it was working on me at the same time. So
Energy is amazing like that, right? It's helping everybody that's at the table. I've been a part of some group sessions where even if one person is working through an issue, I can feel powerful energy moving in myself. Yeah, it really is extraordinary. Can you share with us maybe an example for people who are not yet familiar with the technique? Of course, they can get lots of wonderful information, I'm sure, on your website and in your book. But is there kind of a brief summary for folks who are still new to EFT tapping?
Sure. Here's what I say to people. It's a combination of traditional Chinese medicine with modern psychology. And what we're doing is tapping on acupuncture points, or acupoints as they call them, to calm down the fight or flight response in the brain. You do all that work for people on the fight or flight response and stress relief and the nervous system. So regardless of your problem, cravings for sugar, fear of success, pain in your body, we're addressing the same part of our energy system, which is the brain, and the fight or flight response that gets triggered when we're under stress or duress. So We choose a target, a very clear target. What is it that you want to work on? And then we go to it with the tapping, and people say, what just happened? What just happened? They feel better about whatever the issue was that they put on the table.
And in your practice, you might be dealing primarily with people with mental and emotional issues. Have you had them have the same experience of sometimes physical relief from this emotional practice?
Oh, I've done a lot of physical work I'm not a doctor. So as long as I say I'm a psychotherapist, and if you're willing to go to the place where emotions happen before, during, and after a physical ailment or a physical problem, then I'm okay. And I tap on that. And then they find relief of physical problems all the time. So it is funny because it can be this combination of, relief in the stress relief. And then they'll move their body around and they'll say, but I feel more relaxed too. Or that's funny, the tension in my head has gone down. So there's usually a combination, but they come to me specifically for emotional challenges and emotional conflicts.
Marvelous. And as you explain it, a combination of traditional Chinese medicine and modern psychotherapeutic principles, why do you think it works so quickly?
The research has come out in the last decade, which is wonderful. We love it because in the beginning, people were just saying, oh, it works. Oh, it works. Try this. But there was no research to back it up. Now, thanks to a lot of dedicated people, the research is there. It works so quickly because we're going right to the brain. We're going right to the stress reaction in the brain that calms down the physiology and calms down your nervous system right away. It doesn't take a day. It doesn't take an hour. We're actually accessing this acupressure system, this acupuncture system, by tapping on these spots, these points on the face and the body. And I say to people, it's a little bit like sending a Word document. So, Susie, if I had to send you something, I'd have to call it up, edit it, and then send it to you. And that's what we're doing. We're calling up the problem, the target that we want to use. Then we're editing it with a tapping, getting right into the stress response, taking a breath, and then seeing what's changed, seeing what's been edited.
Amazing. I love that. I love that description of it. And I find as I've shared work and ideas and these practices that can help people cultivate more positivity, topics like happiness can be a bit triggering. Topics like affirmations don't come easily for many people. Sometimes they really struggle to believe those affirmations. And some people think that EFT is about affirmations. So how would you help people recognize the difference in what we're doing with that editing statement?
That's so interesting. So what we're doing is bringing up the challenge that makes us stressed out. As I say, it could be about a relationship. It could be about cravings. It could be about your fear of success or fear of failure. We're bringing it up, owning it, validating it. A lot of people say, wow, the validation alone was enough. But the tapping, of course, is calming down your amygdala, calming down your system. And we're not using affirmations. Now, a lot of people came along and said, oh, but what about law of attraction? I think we shouldn't focus on the negative. Well, not focusing on what's going on in your life does not make it go away. So they came in and started using simply affirmations, and it doesn't work. There's no place for it to go. If you're upset and all you do is say affirmations, it doesn't land anywhere. So what we do now is add affirmations after the distress has gone down enough. You come in with a fear, and your fear is an 8 on the scale of 0 to 10. And you go tap, 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 and it gets down low enough, then there's room for affirmations. And you can tap while you do affirmations. But don't start with that, and don't skip targeting what the challenge is and what you're concerned about.
Yes. And I think you've really landed on something that I try to express to people, when we're in that triggered space around happiness and positivity, in that we have to be honest with where we are. We're recognizing where we are, acknowledging the problem. We're never glossing over it or trying to deny its existence. And I think that is maybe one of the most powerful aspects in my experience with EFT is that you are really getting present to and embracing the situation and mapping a way forward, being open to and receiving that healing and clearing that it can provide. It's so extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And again, people will say to me, wow, I don't think I've ever acknowledged or been acknowledged for what I'm struggling with. So we start there, right? And that changes your energy too. So yes, the tapping, absolutely. The tests have all been done. The research has been done. But what about the acknowledgement and the validation that we all need, which is really saying out loud, this is my issue, this is my problem, I'm sick and tired of it, I need to move forward. Like really owning and honoring where you are emotionally is part of the battle and part of the progress.
So would you say in your practice and your experience that there are some common themes that you find or common issues that people are coming to you with that this tapping helps them to move through or
Well,
resolve?
I've always been in the field of abundance and success. So people come to me and say, I want abundance or I want success, and I'm in my own way. I block myself. I'm procrastinating. I don't know what's going on. And so fear of success, fear of failure, behaviors like procrastination, that's what I work on a lot with business people and lay people who just want to get ahead and say, what am I doing? I keep saying and keep wanting more success in my life in any area, right? And I can watch myself get in my way. So I do a lot of that work for people. Visibility, people are afraid to be visible. They're afraid to stand out. They're afraid to be successful. So I do a lot of that work with people.
Interesting. And so you mentioned procrastination, and we're recording this right around the new year of 25. Goals are at the top of everybody's list. Whether we get to that to-do list is always the next question. Like you say, the ways in which we sabotage ourselves. So first of all, I want to come back to those sabotage patterns, but procrastination is a really common theme, certainly one that I struggle with. Do you find that there's a mechanism or a purpose in that? Why do so many of us struggle with this?
Because procrastination keeps us safe. So if you ask yourself the right questions, you'll find out why you're doing these sabotage behaviors instead of just beating up on yourself. Beating up on ourselves for procrastinating has never changed, right? Has never moved the needle. But think about it. Why would you procrastinate and not put your website out? Why would you not, print your business cards? Why would you not make a phone call to a client that you need to connect with? What's going on? You're afraid of something. So when in doubt, you're afraid of something. So the procrastination provides protection. And once I can get there with someone, they say, oh, I get it. I understand it. Yes, I'm afraid to be successful because, or yes, I'm delaying and procrastinating or avoiding something going on professionally because I'm worried about the consequences on the other side.
Which is so fascinating. We can do a really good job of covering those up and not looking straight at these obstacles that we're creating for themselves. And in my own experience, some of the things that I procrastinate the longest and the hardest, when I'm finally ready to sit down and move through it, it can be done in 5 minutes. But I might have put it off for 6 months, a year. Right now, I'm tackling a project that's been on my list for 3 years. It's fascinating how we can do these things.
Yes.
And so I'm curious too. So as you're talking about this fear of visibility, other issues that we might not be ready to see until we get present and get curious and work through this process, what are some other ways in which we sabotage ourselves, or why do you think we keep doing this?
So every single time when I ask people the reason, so I'll say, what's the upside of your sabotage behavior? The reason every time is fear. Right? They fear something or they have a negative belief. So we keep doing it because we haven't resolved the original issue. Now, I think our culture is overly obsessed with behavior. Stop sabotaging, stop clutter, lose the weight, and we're not getting to the real issue. So once we get to the real issue, then it falls apart. We don't need to do the behavior anymore. I do that with weight loss and addictions. You don't need the 30 pounds anymore when you figure out why you're trying to keep yourself safe. You don't need the procrastination. You don't need the people pleasing once you get underneath it. So the questions are really important to say, let's get to the bottom of it. I understand you don't like procrastinating or you don't like being a people pleaser, but there's an upside to it or you wouldn't do it. That was the game changer for me, is asking the right questions and saying, obviously there's a payoff or it serves you, or you wouldn't do a behavior that you hate.
That's so fascinating. And I think that's really the beauty in working with a practitioner, a therapist like yourself, that can be that powerful reflector and help us see what's just out of our field of vision. Because fear can be shifty and shady, and it likes to throw our focus in different areas and just not let us land on the simple resolution. And I think having a guide like yourself to help people blow through those blocks is so transformative.
Well, fear scrambles our brain. It does the same thing that being in a dangerous situation does. It highlights us, we get hyper vigilant, and everything changes about our brain and our body and our focus. So once we can address the fear, then we can look at a problem and say, oh, well, that's okay. I was afraid of standing out because last time I was successful, a colleague mocked me or something like that. So once you can tackle the fear, ask the right questions, tackle the fear, then you can get to work on what's really going on and what's driving this behavior.
Excellent. I hope that's encouraging for everybody who's listening to this, who's thinking about, wow, this might be something worth checking out, worth exploring and digging into. And you mentioned earlier, just a moment ago, and this is the season, again, not only of planning, but of, as you say, trying to modify and refine ourselves. And weight loss is a really big issue. And I also speak to environmental stress, and there are aspects in our world that we live in that contribute to it. But the emotional connection is something that, while people might be aware it's possible, I don't think people really recognize the depth and the power of that connection. What's your experience there, and how can EFT help people move through that?
Well, I've had such success with emotional overeating, helping people stop that and stop the safety block that they've got, that I don't even worry about the food anymore and the exercise. And I did it for myself as well. So I lost 25 pounds and kept it off. People can lose weight, but they do the yo-yo. Why would you yo-yo?
Right.
Once you reach your goal, why would you go back up? Fear, right? Safety issues, worried about what it's going to feel like when you're there, concerns, right? So emotionally, I just say, what would be an emotional reason that you would want to hold on to the extra weight? Oh, I hate it. I know you do. Why do you think it could protect you? Protection is a very good word to ask too. Is the weight protecting you? And then I'll ask about beliefs. And many people will say, oh, I've lost and gained it so many times. I don't believe I can do it this time. And I'm afraid of being ashamed about it again. Those are two tackleable issues. So every part of addiction and weight loss and all the procrastination behaviors, they're all targetable with EFT. That's why I love the tool. It's so versatile. It's incredible.
Thank you for that. I really love that explanation. And as we keep coming back to, and as I'm sure you find in your practice, it feels like it keeps coming back to aspects of fear, aspects of protecting ourselves from shame or feeling failure, or any of those things that society tends to also apply to us. So it's an inner thing, but also those external demands that I feel like help to create these situations that we're then grappling with.
And guilt as well. So yes, you're totally right. And then guilt loves punishment. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, well, I feel guilty wanting more success because I already have a pretty good amount of success in my life. So then they find themselves sabotaging and they haven't made the connection yet. And then they go, oh, that's what's going on. I'm actually getting in my own way on purpose so that I don't have more success because I'm worried a sibling or a colleague or a friend might be envious or jealous. So there are lots of ways in to find out what the real issue is. But just remember, any sabotage behavior is useful, even though we hate it.
It helps to get curious.
Yes.
And find out what it is that we've put this in place to do. Tell us a little bit about your book and what people can expect to find in there. Do you help people work through the process of EFT tapping, or is it more into the results? Tell us about the YES code.
So the YES code covers, when the subtitle is Transforming Sabotage into Success. So the YES code covers what I think are the main 7 sabotage behaviors. Now, I've done them all. I was the first guinea pig, right? So we have procrastination, people-pleasing, perfectionism, addictions and weight loss, relationship drama, clutter, and ignoring your self-care. Now, some people might say, oh, I've got 5 other different behaviors that are sabotage. That's okay, but these are the main ones I've seen over the last 30 years, right? So I go through those, I tell stories, and then I have a section on EFT and say, this is how you apply it. And I give examples and scripts. And if you are procrastinating for this reason, try this script. If you're collecting clutter for this reason, do this. So there's lots of tapping opportunities in the book, but I give a nice introduction and why we're doing it this way, why it helps, what I've seen over the decades, and why I really think it is not the answer maybe, but an answer to everybody wanting to stop this behavior, and then they don't know what to do. They don't know how to stop. Anybody can clean up, let's say clutter. Anybody can clean up for 2 weeks. Anybody can lose the weight and go to the gym for 2 weeks, but it doesn't last. That's the real issue, is that people are frustrated and concerned and say, I've tried everything. That's what a lot of people come to an EFT practitioner for. I've tried everything. And they're at their wits' end. They don't know what else to do. So I see a lot of people on that end of the continuum.
And it's hard to meet people in that space when they're already feeling defeated and like they're not up to the challenge. So we have to go through all of these steps in the process to end up in the place where we need to be at the right time and ready to receive that healing and these tools. And sometimes I wish we could push fast forward for people and help them skip over some of this externally applied and less beneficial, less fundamental kinds of support. And so you mentioned in those top 7, by no means comprehensive, but most common list that you're encountering in your practice, the issue of clutter. And that is something that in one of my past lives, in an earlier career, I worked with senior clients, helping them to move from their family home into retirement. And so we would be looking at up to 50 years, a lifetime within a house. And how do you fit into a smaller space? How do you focus on what's going to serve you in the new space? And helping them through that process of letting go. And it is fascinating to see what we attach to our stuff.
It is so emotional. Clutter, collecting stuff is so emotional. And again, there are programs where just throw it out systematically. Separate your books and your paperwork and throw it out. And it doesn't work because we're not getting to the emotional reason we hold on. The meaning, as you said, the meaning we attach to stuff is so incredible. And you're not going to budge if you have meaning attached to it. So you really have to get to the bottom of it.
So I love that you're letting us know that is also a part of your book. I think just as you're going over that list, I'm like checking a couple of boxes. Yep, I could use several of those chapters, probably all. And I think it's a wonderful entry point because as we start working through the layers, we start to recognize other things. It's just like working through physical issues in the body. One thing is taking the spotlight and other things are happening, but we don't have the bandwidth to notice those. And so as we work through layers, then we can become aware of how these are impacting each other and crossing over.
Absolutely. The crossover is incredible. And I say to people, even if you're just picking up the book for, let's say, people pleasing, do all the exercises because they all bump into each other. And you may be procrastinating because of people pleasing. You might have perfectionism from your background. A lot of people say, well, I don't have any of the addiction issues. Okay, well, that's all right. But you could still work on tapping and get somewhere because of what we know as called borrowing benefits. So even if you're tapping with other people on an issue that isn't yours, you're calming down your own nervous system. So that helps everybody. 100% of the population could use calming down their nervous system. So I say to people, even if you come in the door for one of the issues, tap on all the exercises.
I love that. And one thing that I think we've become more aware of since we've come out of COVID, since so many of us were socially isolated and numbing behaviors really started escalating. Do you connect or do you differentiate between addiction patterns and numbing behaviors? Do you think there's a strong connection there?
There's a very strong connection, and I would say it's on a continuum. So part of the story I tell is my personal history where I have my parents were alcoholics and my sister is still alcoholic and drinking. That's full-fledged addiction, which is different, but it's on the same continuum. Numbing behaviors, maybe you waste 2 hours on Facebook. Maybe you waste an hour watching TV when you really have something to do. It's not as dangerous, but it's just as addictive, and you lose time. And the point under both of them is you don't want to feel your feelings. That's why we do numbing behaviors. That's why everybody with their phones and watching YouTube and being on Facebook. A lot of us do not want to feel the pain, the hurt, the guilt, the abandonment, the rejection, the fear. So it's very easy to pick up your phone, to go on the computer, do whatever you need to do. So it doesn't have to be about a substance, food or alcohol or cigarettes, but it's the same purpose. You're trying not to feel the discomfort.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I wasn't asking that question just hoping that you would validate it, but I think it's something so important for people to recognize is that again, just as fear can be a powerful driver, avoiding uncomfortable emotions can really shape the way that we move through our day and the habits that we create.
And the habits, it's not just a week, right? People come to me or come to a psychotherapist or an EFT practitioner and they say, I'd had this issue for 8 years or 10 years or 15 years. So the habits start, and if you don't put a foot in the door, if you don't stop the pattern, then it builds and builds and builds. So whether it's an addiction or a people-pleasing habit at work with your boss or procrastination, they build over time, and then you feel like you're drowning. It's like, how would I get out of this issue? Well, you get out of it by going right to the fear, by owning it, validating, getting to the fear. Now we have a tool to address the fear. It's not just this intellectual understanding. Oh, I think I'm holding on to clutter because of my history. Now we can really go to the answer and really get help in the energy system and our nervous system.
And so as you were describing the process earlier, you talked about starting out and noticing my fear is at an 8 and then tapping on it. Can you explain to folks why it's so important? I love this way that we bring something objective to something that is really subjective, which is the way that we feel about things. Why is that important in the process?
Well, in the same way I was describing it to you as we were editing a document, you've got to bring it up and be focused. So I say to people, don't be tapping while you're watching TV or you're distracted by the dog or the kids. You want to be focused because that brings the file up in your brain. It brings the discomfort up. So once you're focused, then you can tap on it and then you can measure it and say, well, that's funny. Nothing's changed in the last 5 minutes, but I don't feel as scared about the meeting with my boss next week. Isn't that interesting? Right? So we want to be very focused. When you choose a target for tapping, I always say you can choose an emotion, a belief, a symptom, or the memory of a past event. Those are great targets, great ways to start EFT, and it's an easy way to get in the door. Sometimes people will say, they'll describe an ailment in the diagnostic criteria, and that's not useful. Like, it's not emotional enough. Why are you upset about your migraines? What do you think brought on your migraines? What's really going on? Oh, this pounding headache, and I think it's from pressure from work or pressure from family. That's where we go. That's how we target it, and then get results right away.
Beautiful. And I think it's so important reestablishing this ability to communicate with our inner sage and having that curiosity and getting curious. Why? What is it about this physical pain? How does it make me feel? And so how do you find people growing in their ability to call on that inner wisdom and maybe build that relationship, build that confidence in that? How do you find that moves people forward?
Well, I always say to people, your body is talking to you. Are you listening? Our behavior is talking to us too. So when people say, I don't know why I called my ex, I don't know why I'm procrastinating, I don't know why I'm eating a box of cookies when I'm not even hungry, right? So you've got to be focused there and say, what's really going on, right? So what changes is with practice, they take time, as you know from your podcast and what you're teaching everybody, to go inward and say, what's really going on? Is that fear? Is that guilt? Is that concern? Am I just fatigued? Am I so exhausted that sugar makes me feel better? What's really going on? So I do see it growing with the practice of paying attention, the practice of going inward, the practice of being still and asking the right questions and just saying, hey, we're all human. We're all getting caught up in these patterns, and ask yourself the right questions. Give yourself time to say, I am uncomfortable. I get it. That's why I'm a people pleaser. I do not want to talk to my boss in any other way, or my colleague or my sister. It's fun to watch it change. And of course, my process over the years has changed too. But it's really fun to watch people say, hey, if I could just tolerate this discomfort for a few seconds, I don't have to do the behavior. I don't have to call the wrong person. I don't have to pick up the wrong drug or alcohol. I don't have to do something. I can just sit with it. Sitting with it is a game changer, right? Being able to acknowledge and validate and sit with your emotions, that changes everybody.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Being able to acknowledge and to sit with our emotions. That is a superpower that I wish more people could really recognize, like how much strength that gives us, how much easier it makes for us to bring in healthier habits, to change the way that we move through the world, because we tend to feel like it's a matter of willpower. And if I'm not conquering these habits or overcoming that addiction, that I just don't have the willpower. And then we start to shame ourselves
Yes.
and not making that
Yes.
change.
Ask a perfectionist if willpower has ever worked, right? It doesn't, and we know it doesn't work with weight loss and with smoking and all that. But ask someone who's struggling with perfectionism, does willpower ever change it? It doesn't. You have to get underneath it and say, why would I need to be perfect? What's driving that behavior? And again, as I say, I think our culture is overly focused on the behavior, so they miss the beliefs and the feelings. Once you get to the beliefs and the feelings, then that everything changes in your work.
Once we shine the light on that, then we know exactly what we're dealing with and that it's not really as big and scary as we're making it out to
Isn't
be.
that funny? It's never as big and scary. And if you have a guide and have a colleague or have a practitioner or someone who can help you through the process, then it's like, okay, I'm not so alone.
So how do you suggest if people are learning about this again, if they're becoming more aware of EFT tapping, they want to learn more about it and start incorporating it? Do you suggest people check out your book? Do you have resources on your website? How do you suggest people find out more? Because I think the book probably comes from the fact that you don't have enough time in the day to support all of the people who could use your help.
The book is easy because it's Amazon, and when you buy the book, not only do you get all of the scripts in it and for all the different behaviors, if you go to my website for the book, then I've got 9 free videos there about every topic, right? So that's really fun and a good resource. You could also sign up to my newsletter, which is a freebie once a week, and I talk about, I choose an EFT target and give people what to say and where to say it. So there's lots of stuff available, and I just think if you get started, once someone has their first experience of like what happened when they feel the stress relief or they feel the release of a migraine throbbing headache or they feel this release of being scared at work, once they get one of those experiences, they're hungry for it because a lot of things don't work and a lot of tools take too long. That's what I like about it. I love results. I'm impatient. What can I say? I love helping people with results, and I wanted them in my own life. The first thing I healed on myself was insomnia. I had terrible insomnia that was anxiety and fear-driven, and I was tapping and tapping and tapping. And one day I woke up and said, I think I fell asleep last night. And it went away while I was tapping for other people. I didn't target my own problem. I was tapping every day with people because I was new to it. So I was tapping on their anxiety, tapping on their fears, and it went away. I mean, can you imagine the game changer for my health? Whew. Sleeping well does a lot for your focus and your health and your work life.
The collateral benefit, it really is extraordinary.
Amazing.
It's so true. And I hope that piques people's curiosity. Insomnia is such a widespread issue, and it is. It's our brain just keeps turning those wheels over things that are beyond our control at the point at which we have the least capacity to do anything about it. We're trying to get our healing rest, not solve the world's problems. But boy, do they get on repeat. And I even had a friend suggest that I tap on allergies and have been amazed at the results of those as well. So even things that seem completely unrelated, oh, I've had hay fever for years. It's pretty remarkable when we look at what can be the emotional source or the reason we hold on to some of these things.
It's incredible to watch that kind of work happen. So with allergies, go to the emotion. So what is an allergy? It feels like there's a foreign agent in your body. There's something foreign that your body's picking up and then reacting to. Think about an attack. Think about when you might have felt attacked. Think emotionally and tap on that. And then you can go through the main feelings, right? You can go through fear, abandonment, guilt, right? Anger, right? And just tap on those. And again, you will find incredible. I just love the results. You'll find results. If you're focused, get focused, right? Follow the bouncing ball. It works. Get focused and keep measurements, like keep writing yourself notes and following. Are you changing your distress or stress on this topic? And you'll follow it and it'll be decreased and you'll say, wow.
It's really amazing. And just as you said, you accidentally fell asleep without keeping yourself awake. I notice as people are making shifts and becoming more comfortable with their emotions, it's almost like after the fact, they notice how far they've come. I wasn't as triggered by a phone call from that person as I always have been. Or I didn't spend as long scrolling in my inbox and putting off starting my workday. It's really amazing. But again, you have to have that awareness and curiosity to notice the shifts happening and something and problem that you're tapping on, and it starts out at an 8 or even a 10, and after a round or several rounds of tapping, you're coming down to a 6 or a 4 on that scale, looking back like, oh, no, that feels much lighter than it did before. That feels much less significant.
Those are great examples. I'm in the middle of a series, a class that I'm doing, and someone said they were an 8 of fear, 0 to 10. And I said, at an 8, you will not do anything. You're not going to change your behavior. We have to focus on the stress of this problem, get it down to something below a 5 before you're going to change. And they get that because at an 8, your brain is so loud. The feedback is so loud. What you're saying to yourself, the mind chatter. So we're calming down everything first, then we can make new decisions. Then we can our work and our life and our home life and our families in different directions.
Yes. And I find it fascinating too, as I go through rounds of tapping, how the statements evolve, how the acknowledgement of where I am changes and the words that come out of my mouth and where I am and where I'm moving to. It's really fascinating. It's such an insightful practice. So I hope people are feeling inspired.
It is an insightful practice. And basic beginners can take the same phrase, I'm anxious about this work meeting. I'm anxious about this work meeting. I just find it a little boring. So then you start to tell a different story. And as you say, it evolves. When you're paying attention, it evolves and you say different things. But basic beginners could just say, do traditional EFT the way it's laid out. And you say you target the same emotion while you're tapping each point. So you can do that. And then as you get used to it, you start to get a little more sophisticated about what to say and as you're going through the process. But
is there a story or a transformation that stands out in your practice that can help people recognize too, maybe the evolution or the process of healing or moving through some of these patterns of sabotage that we've been talking about, or some breakthroughs that you've been able to witness?
I think probably procrastination is the easiest. So I had a colleague who came to me for the tapping because she couldn't get her website out there. And I asked the question, what is the upside of sabotaging yourself? Oh, there's no upside. I really wanted it. I know, but you're not doing it. So there must be something going on. So then I said, what's the downside of getting your website out there? And she said, what if nobody comes? So she'd been working on this and paying a marketer and paying someone for the copy and couldn't get herself to get it out there. And then once she got it out there, of course, clients came to her. She's an excellent practitioner. But it was so classic, like, oh, no, I'm just busy. That's what people say. I've said it too. Oh, no, I'm just busy. That's why I haven't done this business thing or this personal thing yet. No, you're not just busy. You're doing it for a reason. So it was incredible. And of course, she increased her income. Everything changed once she was able to have her business online rather than just by referral as a counselor.
I love
so many
that.
stories. I mean, really, I could take every topic and tell you a story, which is why this many years later, I'm still so excited about it. I'm so excited for people because I think I can give people hope. I can say, I've seen this before, or I've read a story about it before, or EFT will change this part of it. And then I can teach it to them and they can go away and do it on themselves, or they get the book or watch a video. And it's really hope-giving. It's really fun to be able to be an agent of hope.
And I say often on the show, I love inspiring people to build their own toolkit, to collect the tools that work for them. So not only am I hoping that people are inspired to check this out if they're not familiar, or if they have used it but forgotten about it, to refresh themselves and come back to it, give it another try. Because I think it is so insightful, so transformative, and so empowering when we recognize how we can shift ourselves through things that feel big and overwhelming.
Yes. And it's an interesting point you're bringing up because many people say to me, oh, I've tried EFT. It didn't work on me. And I think, well, did you have a right target? Were you going to someone who was skilled? Did you really zero in on what the problem was? Oh, I don't know. We just tapped for a few minutes. No, that's not EFT. Right? There is a process and you need to go through it and be really clear, and then you're going to get the results. So if anyone says, oh, I didn't get any results, something was missing out of I would call it a recipe. Something was missing out of how to move through the process because it works. It works on human beings, works on animals. People do it for animals, right? If you have an energy system, if you have a brain and you get stressed out and have reactions, this technique is going to work on you.
Yes. And, we've been talking about a lot of different things, habit patterns that people fall into or issues that we might be having. But overall, it's really powerful and effective at helping us manage stress. It can be as simple as that. You can simply tap on how stressed you're feeling about an event, a situation, and bring your stress down and help you come back into parasympathetic balance.
That's what I say to people when they say, I don't know what to tap on. Can you give me homework? What do I do? Focus on the stress at the end of your day. What stressed you out? How are you feeling about it? The business meeting, the conversation with your brother, the dog, whatever's going on, your concerns. Tap on stress every single day. And within a few days, you're going to say, I do feel better. I'm noticing something. So absolutely, don't make it complicated. That's a really good thing to say to people too. Don't make it complicated. It's really simple. Choose a target, tap on it, measure it. How do you feel afterwards? Keep tapping on it. I do my own tapping every single day, no matter what. I could be teaching a 3-day workshop on tapping all day for 3 days. I still go home and do my own personal tapping to clean up.
That's such a powerful reminder. And I hope that people are really listening to that because, again, as our work styles shifted, as so many people became remote workers and COVID, we lost the commute, which could incite stress, but also gave people a little bit of a buffer between the stress of work and going home to just be present with themselves or to be present with their family and their loved ones. And the ability to hit reset so you can step out of that stress so you have a chance to recover, but also so you can be fully present in your relationships and with the people that you love. I think that's such an important reminder. Thank you for speaking to that because transformative again.
Well, so many people aren't present because of their stressors or what's distracting them, and then not being present actually can cause another problem, right? And then that problem can cause another problem. So really, if we get back to baseline and get back to really what's important, being calm, peaceful, thoughtful about your own feelings and how you're expressing them with people in your life, at work or at home, then everything starts to change. This is that cascading effect, as you know from all your work with the nervous system. We cannot be in sympathetic nervous system all day long. It's going to exhaust us. It's going to make us sick. So we've got to find ways to get back into balance, thoughtfulness, feeling safe.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm so grateful that we got to explore all these things. Is there anything that we haven't yet covered that we want to let people know about, give them ideas or?
No, I think it's to keep it simple and go back to the stress relief every day. That'll help your sabotage behaviors as well. When we're overwhelmed, we get upset and we don't make good decisions. So if someone said, I have so much going on, I don't know where to start, I would say, choose a target. Either I feel overwhelmed and I feel upset about it, or I feel stressed out. That's your target, and do 10 minutes of tapping every day for the first week and notice what happens.
And that's a great reminder. Again, very timely. If you have things in your life you are wanting to make different choices about, whether they be resolutions or intentions, building better habits, give yourself the capacity to make better choices more easily by coming from that less stressed, better resourced space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's marvelous. We will have the links for folks to connect with you in the show notes, but can you give people your web address where they can go learn more about the book and your work and connect with you online?
Thank you. It's just carollook.com. So my name.com, and there's a link to the book and a link to the ongoing series and how to sign up for the free newsletter.
Marvelous. And we'll have that in the show notes. Carol, thank you so much for these really important reminders, these insights, and the empowering message that people can really dig in and reclaim their well-being, that these tools are so available for us. And thank you for your book and your work and moving it forward.
Thank you, Susie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much. Take good care.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.